Hi, welcome to the podcast. You're listening to Full Metal Pod. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy.
How was your weekend, your big game weekend?
My big game weekend. Well, this past Friday, I went up to a city in Texas called Temple to meet a Power Ranger at like a local comic book store for a little signing. It wasn't one of the Mighty Morphin; it was from Power Rangers in Space, which is one of the really good seasons if you haven't watched it. And that was fun. And then, yeah, just kind of having a pretty chill weekend.
Nice. I didn't do much myself either now that I think about it. I Let's see, what did we do? So on Saturday, we wound up having a really busy week, and whenever I have a really busy week, I just don't want to do anything on the weekend. So I think I played some video games. I caught up with I finally finished the Wayans Brothers. Watched all episodes, all 5 seasons. Uh, Watched SNL. On Saturday, we actually I'm in process of purchasing a place, and so the dog and I, Winry and I, just walked all the way down to the neighborhood and checked it out, see what it's like. She loved it because she's a year old puppy, so she just loves taking walks everywhere. And then we did our virtual brunch yesterday, which was fun. Uh, yeah, I'm a big fan of brunches. Well, you know that you've been to brunch with me. Big fan of brunches, and since things have been shut down here in the Bay Area, we we can't really hang out at actual lunch places, or it's not a good idea. And then, of course, some people have temporarily relocated due to shelter in place. So we just every so often we just host a lunch over over video chat, and everybody kind of cooks whatever they want or orders in or however they want to do it, and we just kind of chat.
Nice. What did you make? Like, what did you have for brunch?
I pretty much was just using up stuff that I had in the kitchen. So I made a banana pecan not waffle pancake, and then I had some chicken apple sausage and scrambled eggs with it.
Oh, that sounds really good. That pancake sounds really good.
Yeah, I will order stuff from Uber Eats Uber Eats is my preferred one, but Postmates or whatever. Sometimes we'll use the other ones because some restaurants are only on some platforms. But like brunch, I feel like, or even really breakfast food in general, I feel like it's not anything that you can order because it just doesn't travel well. Like pancakes have like a 5-10 minute period that they're good before they're just crappy. And so yeah, it just doesn't travel well because they're first they make it and then they kind of put it on a shelf or whatever on the counter waiting for the Uber Eats guy to show up, and then of course he shows up whenever he drives it. So it could be 15 minutes or whatever that it's just sitting there. So I just prefer to cook my own brunch.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of brunch. Breakfast brunch, I'm totally down for. I love pancakes and all that. Have you ever tried to make those Japanese fluffy pancakes?
Once, and it did not work.
My pancakes came out fluffy. Like, I've tried it and they've come out fluffy, but not like souffle, like that much rise. I'm getting rise, but I'm not getting a lot of rise.
Have you ever had the real thing? Like, it's been a while since I've been to Austin, like about a year, and I don't think there was a Japanese pancake place in Austin at that point in time, but maybe there is now. But like, have you ever actually had the Japanese souffle pancakes?
Not No, only I've only seen it on YouTube and try to make it myself.
Oh man, it's my advice is you have to actually go to Japan to have it. And I know that's sounds like okay, yeah, well, yeah, let me just book a trip or whatever. But in Austin, not in Austin, and here in San Francisco, about a year or two ago, they opened a Graham, which is a pancake chain out of Japan, and they do the fluffy pancakes amongst other ones. So a friend and I went there because I remember eating some. I want to say in either Kyoto or Osaka years ago, thinking, "Oh man, this is great!" Now they finally have it in the city, so I don't have to fly across the ocean to get it. And I went, and it was just awful. Like I don't know if it was just a bad day or whatnot. It's just it wasn't as good as I remembered it being. But then when we went to visit Japan back in 2019, we found a pancake place in Tokyo, and we went there, and oh, that was like the best I had. And they actually have like this little window into the kitchen where you can watch them make it, and it's like this precise science where they have like this. Well, with COVID now, we've seen it all. The little gun uh, thermometers and whatnot, so they're using that to the temperature, and it's like a science watching them try to put it together.
I find it interesting, and I like watching it on YouTube. And it's always like this, like young mother, and she's like, "I'm just whipping these eggs," and you fold in your thing, and you just put your batter on your hot pan, and then hers rises, and then I'm making mine. And like, just full disclosure, I went to culinary school and I work as a pastry chef, and mine just come out flat. I feel like I know what I'm doing wrong, and I think it's in the morning and I don't care. And I'm like, you know what,
Hmm.
these pancakes are good enough. But mine don't come out like they do on YouTube.
I know that feeling all too well. I'll see a picture of something on the internet, and it'll be like a cookie, and it'll be perfect or whatever. Then I try to make it, and it looks like an ink blot test.
And like, they taste the same. Like, you'll taste your cookie and you'll be like, this tastes good. Just like, why doesn't mine look pretty?
Hmm. And that pretty look like cost it counts for a lot. I want to find it, and I'll probably put it in the show notes if I do. This had to be years ago when I saw it. But there's this thing where they were trying to prove or show that not what's the word I'm looking for, uh, that I guess how much plating mattered. So they took like fast food from like Wendy's and McDonald's and stuff like that, but then they plated it like it was from a five-star restaurant, and it was kind of funny looking because that you're looking at McDonald's, but it had like the plate has like this ketchup smear on it, and they put parsley on the side and everything. It's just it was funny.
So
Presentation counts for a lot, apparently.
do they take the sandwich apart and like
Yeah,
reconstruct it on the plate? Oh, interesting.
yeah, it's been years since I've seen that, so I don't know if I'll find it, but if I can find it on the internet, I will include it in the show notes.
Oh, I'm definitely interested in checking that out.
Yeah, I see. Like that's why I could never be a chef or professional food person or anything because I'm just not good at plating anything. So I think like, everything would just be like you get what you get, like a diner. And I kind of like the hole in the wall diners too because sometimes they have the best food, but it's just like yeah, we're not trying to impress anybody. We're not trying to tell you that we have three Michelin stars or whatever. Like here, you get what you get, plop on the plate, but then it still tastes great.
I always, and I know people are gonna like roll their eyes, but I like to say that my food is rustic. That way I don't really have to like, make everything super uniformic. Everyone loves a rustic thing. So my style of cooking is very rustic.
Yeah, maybe if I did that, or maybe if I called mine rustic or came up with like a good marketing term, and I'd probably feel little bit better about my cooking ability.
Like, I don't know if you've seen this commercial. You probably haven't because I don't think you watch like regular TV. But Rice Krispies has a new Rice Krispie out, and it's called Home Style. But it's like the marshmallows aren't completely melted and folded in, so you see chunks of marshmallows, and they're like Home Style Rice Krispies.
That sounds okay. I'm not sure how I feel about that one, but all right.
I mean, I'm down for any Rice Krispies, and I don't know if any of our listeners or you did this, but growing up, my family, we didn't always have Rice Krispies, but every now and then we would make our version of Rice Krispie treats, which is just like use whatever cereal you have and melt some marshmallows and make that into that. So that's what we would do. We would just use random leftover cereal.
I think I did that with Fruity Pebbles once. don't know that I've ever done it with like Captain Crunch or anything like that. What was the best cereal you've used that wasn't Rice Krispies?
We did it once with like Frosted Flakes. I remember growing up, so Frosted Flakes and honeycombs. Is that what it's called? Honeycombs cereal?
Yeah, yeah. It looks like the beehive, or looks like the honeycomb, and it had like the little weird animal thing as the mascot,
Yeah.
little fuzzball.
Yeah. I've had this problem since I was a kid, but I never like to eat the same cereal back to back. So I'll always have like growing up we always had like two different kinds of cereal because my parents like different things than I did as a kid. So there would always be two different kinds of cereal. But now as an adult, I have like three or four different cereals that I like to rotate through. I like to mix up life a little bit. Or, even pour some of one cereal and another of a different kind.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now I really want to. I think maybe not this week because I don't have any marshmallows or cereal for that matter. But now I actually want to reminisce and make myself some of that, like rice, some kind of Rice Krispie treat, but with a unique cereal. I'll report back when I do it.
Sounds good. I'll do it too. I'll make whatever cereal I have left in my counter, like cabinet, and I'll post some pictures of my rice. My I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. Rice Krispie treats.
Same here. But before we do that, let's get to the podcast and talk about some
Sound
Full Metal Alchemist.
sounds good.
So we are on episode 25. So we are chopping right through all of this. And we are getting to the end. We're getting to the promised day, which is kind of the climax, if you will, or the penultimate event of the show. We have episode 48 today, Oath in the Tunnel, as well as episode 49, Filial Affliction. Let's go ahead and start with Oath in the Tunnel. So it picks up exactly where it left off with Lon Fawn just laying into Gluttony. She does it so much that he actually says, please stop killing me. It hurts or it's annoying. Ling also joins the fight. And it's kind of nice to see Lon Fawn and Ling teaming up and fighting again. We haven't really seen that a lot, maybe over 20 episodes or something to that effect. Gluttony is very confused because it's pitch black and he has no idea how they're finding him. They can't necessarily see him like with their eyes, but they're able to sense his presence due to his corrupted chi. Fu arrives and he provides a little bit of exposition. The descendants of the Emperor of Xing are trained in reading Qi and using the Dragon's Pulse and stuff because it's kind of considered part of their duty as being an emperor and using the Dragon's Pulse to strengthen Xing and all that good stuff. Since Lan Fan and Fu are his protectors, they receive the same training that Ling did. And of course, we know, as a side thought, Mei Chang, she's one of the Emperor's children, so she learned the whole Dragon's Pulse and Shi reading. So yeah, they receive the same training. Fu and Lan Fan have been hiding out in Central for a while. Then they sensed two large and corrupted Chi presences converging, so that's what caused them to head out to the slums. He also senses pride, and then of course he says he senses a huge Chi that dwarfs all the other three in the slum, which of course we know is Hohenheim. Lan Fan apparently hasn't had her auto mill for the full 7 months, so I guess there's like a 7 month period that you have to go through healing or whatever before you're able to actually use your auto mill. And so Ed figures, okay, well, I'll help out because there's no way she's going to be able to handle the fight on her own. Fu says not to worry because they have a lot of tools besides just fighting. Ed notices that the lights are returning, so they need to deal with Pride soon. He asks Fu to help him locate Pride. Fu agrees to help him. Darius asks Ed to be careful. Now we see Heinkel continuing to beat up Pride, and Heinkel is getting tired, but Pride is still, doing all right. In Central, Mustang is in Madame Christmas's bar. She gives him some intel on Salim, showing him as a little boy in pictures that date back, years, 50 years, 20 years, a long time, that only solidify the fact that he's not human. In each photo, he is also with a government official. She also checked into the hometown of the Fuhrer. They have a bunch of records saying that he was born there, but when she actually looks at the hometown, nobody has ever actually met anybody from the Bradley family. The mansion that's there is really just a facade, and there's no known relatives, so it's all just kind of iffy and crazy. Madam Christmas is confused as to how no one realized that Salim was a homunculus because, you have this little boy who's showing up in pictures over decades, unchanging. But Mustang then mentions, well, the family likely fabricated the stories. They're the family of power. His name's King Bradley. He can cover up whatever he wants. Back on the Heinkel versus Pride fight, some villagers come by and see a lion man beating up a boy and naturally assume the worst. They have a lantern with them, and that provides enough light to create a shadow that Salim uses to attack Heinkel. This scares the villagers, causing them to drop the lantern and start a fire, giving Pride even more light for shadows and therefore more power. The Chimera is nearly killed, but Ed shows up just in time to save him, and of course, Heinkel's grateful. Back at the bar, we see Central soldiers run up to the guards outside. They say that Mustang's in there. He must be really getting his drink on or whatever. The soldier tells them that Madam Christmas's real name is Chris Mustang and is Mustang's foster mother. They realize that this is more than him just hanging out in a bar, but before they can run in to arrest him, Mustang uses his flame alchemy to blow up the bar. They escape to the sewers, and Mustang says he'll buy a new house for Madam Christmas when he can. Madam Christmas says she will head somewhere safe, and Mustang needs to save this country. Mustang continues down the sewers and makes it to a hidden tunnel where he runs into Riza, Fury, Breda, and of course the dog, Black Hayate. The Bradleys are in the east according to Riza, but Mustang updates her on his status as being missing after that explosion in the ravine. They wonder how this will affect their mission as everyone will now be on high alert. They wonder if they should just hold off, but they decide that they need to see it through at this point. After all, with the promised day around the corner, they need to work. They don't really have a lot of movability, or they don't have a lot of options. Mustang gives them one final order, and that was not to die. Back in the fight, Heinkel is recovering and Ed is fighting Pride. Pride isn't sure why he can't cut Ed. Ed realizes that his automail has a carbon base, so he hardens his armor similar to how greed hardens the carbon in his body. Realizing that he can't win that way, Pride does plan B. He takes control of Al's body and makes Ed fight him. Ed has Fu come out and he sets off a flash bomb, which is so bright it removes all the shadows from the area. Gluttony notices the flash and decides to see what it is. Lonfon is in pursuit, but her arm hurts, and Darius is able to grab Al after, Pride's shadow is destroyed and he's able to take him away. Ling and Lonfon join the fight, and Pride realizes that Gluttony is pretty badly beaten up. He also realizes that the two Shingis have an unfair advantage of following him because of their ability to sense. Pride then acknowledges, hey, we likely won't survive. We're both pretty badly beaten up. And so at this point, Pride cannibalizes Gluttony and devours his Philosopher's Stone. This gives Pride Gluttony's sense of smell, which gives him an edge. It also helps him heal a little bit. Pride is now able to smell Hohenheim, who is shown holding Al's body. Episode ends. We see the post-credit scene. The generals are talking to Father. They say that Mustang is likely behind everything from the attack to the Isvalans. Father asks how to find him. What would he do next? Olivier says that Mustang would likely take the Führer's wife as a hostage. Father's confused as to why he would do that. It's futile. Doesn't make any sense. But then we see a car driving in the wood, well, with the Führer's wife. They are stopped by a car in the road. Mustang's men jump out and take out the guards and then take the Führer's wife. They say they have no intention of harming her, and we end the episode there. So, what were your thoughts?
This is probably the first episode that I actually audibly yelled at my television when the two people from the slum
Mm-hmm.
comes up and then Heinkel is fighting Pride and they had the little lantern. I audibly said no at that moment because I knew what was going to happen. But in the two guys' defense, it does look like a giant lion is beating up a small child.
From my experience, chimera aren't really known as a thing. It seems like only some really high up people in the military or people who happen to encounter them know what chimera are. So if I were a guy just kind of out there and I walk in a field and I see a giant beast looking thing beating up a little boy, yeah, that would probably be my first assumption is, holy crap, this thing that I have no idea what it is attacking this child for no reason.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I still feel betrayed by Pride and him being Salim. I liked that character from when we first met him. He was kind of this cool little innocent boy writing papers about his dad, and then we find out he's this like so many years old homunculus, and it's just I feel betrayed.
Me too. Like, we haven't seen Salim anymore. Like, now all we've seen is Pride. We don't see the little boy anymore. He doesn't even talk like a little boy anymore. He talks with that, semi demonic voice that he has as a homunculus.
And I believe like I might be wrong, but he's fighting Ed and he says something to Ed like I believe he calls him a little alchemist, and then of course
Mm-hmm.
Ed gets angry because someone called him little. But I believe this is the first time someone's like used that as like a mean way of saying it to Ed. Usually it's kind of like, oh, I didn't know you were little, or you're just like little. But this feels like, I mean, he took it personal. Like he made it personal when he said that. Pride.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pride was also, like, we had told Pride doesn't like him. Pride doesn't have any problem maiming Ed. I mean, he's even said so much as, like, you know, yes, I need to keep you alive, but that doesn't mean I can't remove your limbs. So he clearly has massive disdain for Ed. So yeah, when he calls him a little homunculus, or not little homunculus, when he calls him a little alchemist, it's purely just to get under his skin.
And it's interesting. Um, we kind of get like Ling's team back together with old man Fu coming back in the picture this episode, which I enjoyed a lot.
Yes, and then Lon Fan returning as well. And I guess we get a better idea of what the timeline is, of how much time has passed. At least we know it's under 7 months because apparently you're supposed to heal within 7 months before you really use your auto mail. But she's kind of not just using it, but fighting with it and kind of going all out with it, which is causing her pain naturally.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll ever talk about this in the episode or in the series more because it felt like oh we established something but we can't really go in depth into it right now. But I do wonder why it's 7 months. Is it kind of to get used to the weight of it or just having something attached to your body? I do kind of wonder why 7 months exactly.
My guess, and I don't know if they ever actually go into it, but my guess is it has to do with the way the body heals. So, like, Ed says in an earlier episode when he gets a new piece of auto mail that the pain of the nerves reconnecting and everything. So I think there's just this whole process of merging your biological fleshy parts and nerves and stuff to this metal part, and it's not something that just happens. And I think it takes a while for your brain to adjust to it and for your arm to handle it and all that stuff.
I do wonder if it's like, so it's more maybe a pain thing and just kind of, so your body adjusts to it. You don't feel as much pain anymore, but at the beginning, it's a lot of stress on it. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think so. Because when we see her getting upset or when we see her reacting, it looks way more like, "Oh, I'm hurt," or "Oh, I'm in pain," versus like I don't know, like I don't know, like it's blowing up or something. Like I think it's all pain related. I think it's because like it's too much stress on her nervous system, her muscular system at that point in time.
That's why I figured now that we're talking about it. But at that moment, I was like, is does that mean it's kind of like gonna detach from her? Like they haven't fully connected, or putting too much strain on something so early, it might rip off of you. But it does seem more like a kind of pain thing.
Yeah, because we don't really see anything, happen to her arm or anything other than the fact that she grabs onto it because it's hurting. So I think it's largely pain.
And then it's it's really cool seeing Ling and was Lafon attack Gluttony. And it's a really cool scene.
Yeah, because they're going so fast, and Gluttony's not even able to properly react before Lonfon drops another attack on him and slices him up and whatnot. And that's pretty much exactly what she's doing. Like every few seconds or whatnot, she's slicing him up, and he's dying and healing and dying and healing, and he just can't deal with it anymore, and he can't fight back either because they're too fast.
I did think this was going well. This episode, we do see the end of Gluttony, but I thought when they were fighting him, we were gonna see the end of Gluttony, and they did kind of push him all the way up to his breaking point.
Yeah, yeah. As Pride says, that they were both broken up, or they were both beaten up pretty badly, and they probably wouldn't be able to survive because they're already running ragged. The two Jingyi's people, Ling and Lan Fan, have this unfair advantage, and they're way too fast, and they're skilled fighters. So yeah, Pride just pretty much figures, okay, well, if I get your power, that'll give me an advantage because then I can smell their presence and attack. And we all know he has like ranged attacks and whatnot with his shadows and everything. So hey, that'll help. And then of course he mentions eating another philosopher's stone is going to just, even if it's not a fully powered philosopher's stone, it's going to heal him. It's going to power up his philosopher's stone.
Okay, so did he know that he was gonna get the Gluttony's like super sensitive nose? Because I thought he just wanted to heal himself.
I think it was both because he mentions the problem with gosh, what's his name? Mentions the problem with the two fighters with Ling and Lan Fan being able to sense him and stuff, and how that gives him an unfair advantage. So that kind of tells me that he knew that he would probably get Gluttony's power if he consumed his Philosopher's Stone.
And, oh man, and it was pretty rough him devouring Gluttony, and it does make you see like what kind of, I mean, they're evil villainous characters, but they're not too they're, I don't know how to phrase this. They're willing to like kill each other to get ahead or to stay in the game.
Yeah, and then we even see him cry a little bit and tear up, and then he cries for lust. So it really shows that mentally he's still pretty much a child, and to see him being killed like that.
And it was interesting up to that point when before Pride, oh man, and Pride licking his lips. I want that not in my mind again. It was so weird, like a weird scene. But before he was like, "I'm gonna eat gluttony," and they were talking, I got this like this almost parallel brother vibe of those two being brothers in a sense, and then there's Ed and Al, or other pair of brothers in the sense. But as you can see, like Ed and Al would never give each other up. While Pride was so quick to destroy his younger brother so that he could stay alive.
Yeah, that is actually a keen observation. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, they we see the kind of that this difference between them where Pride could care less what happens to Gluttony and just kills him because yeah, he needs more power now in order to survive the fight, and he needs some skills. So even listening to Gluttony cry out and beg him not to eat him is, and he still just goes with it, goes through it, and he's like, "Yeah, this is me. This is what I need."
And how genius, like those flash bombs. I would have never thought about that. I mean, it makes sense. Pride needs the shadows, and a giant light source would remove all the shadows. But for Ed to think of that so quickly, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's what I like is he tried to outsmart him. I mean, he didn't. What's the word I'm looking for? Ed didn't really exactly. Or I'm sorry, not Ed. He didn't try to go and attack him directly. It was almost a misdirect because as soon as Al showed up, but being controlled, my guess is that Pride figured, okay, that's that. But Ed called out Fu and said, okay, now, and then Fu jumped out and did his thing, and yeah, it's just yeah, they were planning behind the scenes and definitely outwit him.
And it's interesting again. Like I never thought about when the light hits Pride's shadows that it's like cutting him open. It's ripping his body apart. But it is because that's how they end up weakening him.
Yeah, because his body, I mean, obviously you don't necessarily see it, but his body is that black mass, and the Salim body is essentially just a vessel. So yeah, the more they destroy his shadow part, the weaker he gets.
Yeah, and it's cool they found a way to kind of to bring him down and control him. Unfortunately, he gets the upper hand by eating gluttony. So that's I love this whole kind of fighting scene that we're having in this episode.
Yeah, it feels like it's not back to basics, so to speak, but it definitely feels like we're getting back to the way some of the earlier episodes were, where they're actually fighting and stuff. Like it seems like the past few episodes or whatnot, it was just us kind of catching up and talking and doing some exposition and everything.
But I mean, we got some exposition in this episode too, which brings me to like my other shocking reveal where Madame Christmas is actually Chris Mustang, and it's Roy Mustang's, I believe, stepmom
Foster mom, but yep.
or foster mom. Well, I mean, they have the same last name, so
Yeah, my impression or what I think is he just took her name or whatnot when he finally got it, when he was fostered or whatever. My guess is he has no idea what his original name was, maybe.
the way they interact though after she destroys the bar, or I don't know, she did. Maybe together they destroyed the bar, but it does. Yeah, after that, it's like that motherly vibe you get from her, kind of this tough love, where she's like, "The next time I see you, you better not be in a body bag, and you're gonna remember. I guess now you remember me when you're famous." I loved all that interaction, and now I wish we would get more of her.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like we won't because it seems like she's leaving or going out of the country. Maybe we'll get her in like the last episode or something when everything's done. But yeah, and I think we've only gotten to see her like maybe 2 episodes. So yeah, I would have liked to see her more as a character aside from the 2 or 3 episodes where we did get to see her, and we always got to see her briefly in those episodes too.
True. But in this little time that we did have with her after, I'm going to say the reveal, after the reveal of who she is, it kind of, you get the vibe of, oh, that's where Mustang gets his kind of witty humor.
Hmm.
Because she's got that dry, witty humor, just like talking to him and bantering with him.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's where he gets it from, probably.
Yeah, that is probably where he gets it, and then it also kind of tells us a little bit about his character too, because we have the big reveal. I mean, obviously, it's something you can easily miss, but he's a foster child. He didn't grow up in a normal household or anything like that. So it makes you wonder how much of that has actually like controlled, not controlled, but how much of that has contributed to the way he is today and the way he sees like helping other people and wanting to take care of people and become Fuhrer so that he can make the country better and everything like that.
True. And it gives you like this, you're right, it gives you a different perspective of him about what is his drive. And uh, out of everyone who wants to be the next Fuhrer, like I said last episode, I like Roy Mustang the most because he seems the more purest of everyone. That he actually has some genuinely good motives and he cares about people.
Yeah, he actually wants to make the country better. Whereas I think to some extent they all want that, but I think Olivier just wants more power, kind of thing. And I think same thing with Grumman. I think they also want to like end the whole military dictatorship and whatnot and give power back to the parliament. But I think Mustang's definitely more geared towards that or is pushing for that harder.
Yeah, I believe if there was another way of fixing this country without having to be Fuhrer that he could do, then he would go that route. But
Mm,
since becoming Fuhrer is the best way to fix this country because he can make the decisions, that's the way he's going.
yep. Yeah, that was a good episode. Good fights. Horror with seeing Gluttony get eaten. But overall, I would give this a high rating.
Oh, I definitely would give this probably a top of my list of episodes I enjoyed watching. Awesome action, some like weird stuff happening with the like homunculus, and then the reveal of Madame Christmas. It's got like everything I like in an episode.
I agree. It was very very cool to see that and seeing all the action and just this fight for their life as well that they're having with Pride because Pride is a formidable fighter. I think now we can jump to episode 49, Affliction. I can't, that's like a hard word to say. Filial Affliction. We pick up where Hohenheim is trying to awaken Al because Darius brought Al's body over to Hohenheim to get him away from the fight. Pride asks Ed if Hohenheim would save him if he chopped off one of his limbs. This results in a pretty cool Ed versus Pride fight. Greed then takes over Ling's body and starts to get attacked by Pride. Lanfan is trying to fight, but of course, as we mentioned earlier, she hasn't fully healed, so she's having a hard time fighting. And Fu is trying to save Heinkel while Greed blocks the attacks of Pride. Even Greed sees Pride as a monster. Alphonse comes to, and he's a bit confused as to why he is in Kanama with Hohenheim because he was supposed to be heading east. He then realizes that Pride took control of him. Hohenheim tells him that they essentially share the same blood because the father was created using Hohenheim's blood, and The other homunculi are created from father. So, in a weird way, the Al and Ed are related to the homunculi by blood. And since that was the case, Pride was able to control him using his blood seal. Fu arrives and points out that Pride consumed gluttony and is now overpowering everyone. The fires are giving Pride way too much light. They also realize that Pride is a potential threat to the slum dwellers because the fight's eventually going to spread out. People are probably going to get curious and won't end well. Al gets an idea and asks for Hohenheim's help. We go back to the fight. Pride has just totally cleared out all the trees in the area, so there is nowhere for anyone to hide. Pride starts to gloat about how he's won and he's going to kill everybody. But then Hohenheim arrives and he says, "Hey, you always have to be the hero, don't you?" Pride continues to mock him, asking if he thinks he's strong enough to even take on Pride. Hohenheim says that he doesn't think he can beat him, but Pride is naturally suspicious of Hohenheim, thinks he must be plotting something for him to come out so nonchalantly. Out of nowhere, Al jumps and tries to lunge at Pride. Pride is able to subdue Al and just mocks him and just says, "This was a stupid idea." Pride calls Al stupid, which of course angers Hohenheim. Hohenheim's like, call my son stupid. Hohenheim uses alchemy, and we just see him create this massive kind of orb out of the earth and contain Pride and Al in it. Since it's pitch black in that little orb or that ball, Pride is not able to use his powers at all. Ed is angry at Hohenheim, but Hohenheim says that it was all Al's idea. Since Alphonse doesn't need oxygen or water or food, he is totally fine staying in that imprisonment with Pride and kind of waiting until the promised day passes. Al figures that this was the only way to ensure that everyone survived since they had little chance of successfully taking out Pride. And of course, if the fight continued, they risked further collateral damage with the villagers in the slum. Through the rock, Al promises that he'll be fine and it'll just be for one day. He'll stay confined until the promised day passes and they'll be fine at that point. Greed runs off and he's kind of talking to himself and points out that at this point, Sloth and Father are the only two left defending Central. Ling asks Greed, what is he planning? And Greed says, well, hey, he wants to take over the world. We see random townspeople in Central talking about the recent increase of Ishvalans in the city, but also the random disappearance of Scar. Just by dumb luck, Scar comes by. Scar asks where Kanama is, and the townspeople say it's just south of there. They mention Mei Chang, and they ask if they've seen her yet. Scar's like, doesn't really know why they've asked that because, as far as he knows, Mei Chang head back to Xing. But she said, hey, we actually noticed her walking by lately. And naturally, this upsets Scar because that means she's came back to Central instead of heading to Xing like he told her. Another townsperson shows up and asks if Scar is celebrating. Scar is curious what he means and says, well, the attack. Clearly you killed Wrath, and Scar says this is the first he's hearing of it. And also, Ishvalans are not terrorists; they're countrymen. So he's offended that they would assume that an Ishvalan had something to do with the Führer's disappearance. We jump a little further and we see a bunch of dead Ishvalans in the street, and we see Kimberly, and it looks like Kimberly is the one who's taken them all out. Inside of the orb, Pride is trying to tunnel out, but Al says it's pointless. It's not likely that Hohenheim made thin walls in that orb. Al says that his pride was his downfall. He thought too low of people, and that's how they were able to outwit him. Alphonse also points out how faulty their plan was. They needed the sacrifices and assumed that they had control over them. But realistically, there was nothing keeping them from just leaving the country and not being able to be used as a sacrifice because they are out of the reach of everybody. Pride says that he has a point and humans are selfish, but there are a few that aren't. He then reminisces a little bit about a time when his mother protected him from being hurt. He was in the street, a car swerved and nearly hit him. She jumped in front of him to protect him. Now the car stopped in time, but she didn't realize that, he would have been completely fine and she was willing to risk her life to protect him. He actually liked her. This was interesting to him. And he figures that the brothers have an even stronger resolve to where they would have not fled, even if it would have saved everybody. They would have stayed and fought. Therefore, their plan, the homunculized plan, really wasn't all that sloppy. We see Mustang at Hughes's grave briefly, paying him respects when Reezer arrives. She tells Mustang that they need to get ready, so they move out, and we get kind of a still glance at Hughes's grave. Scar and his crew arrive at Kanama. The Chimera meet up and argue about who is loyal to Kimberly. It's actually kind of funny because you have two Chimera who are yelling at another two Chimera. They eventually realize that all of them have defected from Kimberly's army. They basically figured that Kimberly didn't care about them at all, and that's why they all deflected. He kind of left them all for dead. They have no complaints about being fugitives because they know that their new family, the ones that they've met on this journey, the brothers and whatnot, will never abandon them. We see the sun come up and the promised day will be soon. Fu is sent to do some recon since no one has seen him, so it would be pretty easy for him to wander